Legendary Tim Schafer is back with a new project. 16 whole years later after the release of the prequel and 6 long years since its announcement. That's right, Psychonauts 2 really exists, and I've played for the last week as much as I could to have the best and most honest final opinion. In fact, it always takes a long time to write a review because I believe that while it is sufficient to finish the main storyline of a game, delving into side quests, characters, and world building truly defines a whole new perspective. And these are all aspects that Psychonauts 2 does very well, without being scared of offering something new. The background of the story is rich and alive. Every interaction with a random NPC triggers a small dialogue, every room has its purpose, every level sticks to a particular theme, every relevant character offers a unique view of the world. Just to mention a few, Bob Zanotto, Mia Vodeo, Sasha 9, Fork Ruler, and Dr. Loboto are all so unique and hilarious to speak with. Everything has an explanation. For example, the psychic powers being attributed to the Psytanium meteors that fell on the planet, the displays in the main hub that recap events from the past, or again the statues of the Psychic Six in the atrium. The small gap between the original Psychonauts and this one is filled with a recap at the beginning and a VR game released a few years ago called Psychonauts in the Rhombus of Ruin. So it's awesome to see how the current world building reflects the previous events. Psychonauts 2 has the ability to pick up a story and keep going like it hasn't been 16 years. The premise is that delusionists, followers of the terrifying Maligula, are trying to bring her back to life through necromancy. And most importantly, there's a mole inside the Psychonauts. From this point on, well, you need to play. The gameplay is very traditional. Rasputin Aquato, the scared but also motivated protagonist of this otherworldly adventure, uses psychic powers to solve simple but ingenious puzzles, traverse paths filled with obstacles and narrow platforms. Every power can be assigned to one of the controller's triggers. This is one of the biggest flaws of the game, as you often forget what you assign to which button and you end up changing the same one over and over again, because adjusting the whole layout while also wanting to progress breaks the rhythm. So many times I ended up falling into the abyss or being hit by an enemy just because of the controls. The general tempo of the game is also slowed down by way too many cutscenes, often on occasions where the dialogues and actions could be integrated directly into the gameplay. Psychonauts 2 suffers the syndrome of giving you a cutscene, making you walk for 2 seconds and then giving you another cutscene. But back to talking about psychic powers, there's pyrokinesis, which sets objects or enemies on fire, mental connection used to pull threats closer or as an alternative to jumping from one thought to the other, clairvoyance, which gives Raz the ability to enter someone else's mind, levitation, which makes moving faster but also possible on hazardous ground, and so many more. Melee, projection, time bubble, psyblast. The variety is more than enough, and it is mostly similar to the arsenal of the first game, with some new additions. Psychic powers always have an offensive use against enemies and a strategic use to solve puzzles and progress. This is great because it means that Raz always uses his abilities in one way or another, and there's a great flow of actions and problem solving. It almost comes natural to compare this project to other famous platform games. The most obvious one is Ratchet & Clank, of course, and I have to say that what one lacks, the other compensates. Tim Schafer focuses on writing, unique style, cleverness, while Ratchet provides flawless and creative gameplay. Only one thing is for sure: both really like gliding on railways. Psychonauts 2 has decent gameplay, but it focuses more on merging it with the atmosphere and the art style by never taking itself too seriously. Fighting is heavily assisted with automatic aiming and large hitboxes, so in fact there's no real challenge in the game, except on a few occasions where losing is almost frustrating. as it mostly depends on programming rather than the ability of the player. Way too many times you get hit by enemies even if you're dodging, or you end up falling down while going through a platforming level just because Raz doesn't interact with the environment in a polished way. The only challenge is to complete the game with all its collectibles and the side quests. I didn't appreciate the amount of collectibles, but that's just because they slow down the pace without a satisfying reward. There's supply chests to gain more money, figments to rank up, alpha mines to increase maximum health, nuggets of wisdom, again for ranking up, cards, ranking up again, memory vaults to expand the lore, and crying bags that require a bag tag to stop crying, apparently. Each rank gives a star to spend to upgrade psychic powers. The intern program, which acts as the menu inside Psychonauts 2, is another element that makes the world building even more real. Raz really uses his journal, so it would only make sense to write his tasks on it, while also collecting badges and writing down new skills or stories. On the contrary, Psytanium is spent at automatics to add new abilities, aesthetic tweaks, storage upgrades, and more. Although the currency in this game is not very balanced because I got to the end of the game and only unlocked a few pins and bought a couple consumables. Unlocking new abilities also adds new layers to the exploration of the same levels over and over again. It is cool for completionists, but for me, as a player who likes to complete main and side quests without finding all the collectibles, it's just something more that I will probably never do. Especially because some of these collectibles rely on going back to a remote location by traveling through an already cleared level. As I said before, Psychonauts 2 never takes itself too seriously. This concept is applied to everything. It is, in the end, made by Tim Schafer, and it is impossible to not compare the nonsensical but clever humor to Grim Fandango. Yes, the games are completely different and separated by decades of technical evolution, but there is a strong sense of belonging to the same universe. Every character design is unique because realism is not a priority. One looks like a Picasso painting, another like a parody of themselves. The protagonist's head rests on a tiny body. The writing is similar in many ways to Grim Fandango, but it never reaches the same level as the beloved graphic adventure released in 1998. It has a way too childish imprint by explaining almost too much how each quest can be completed, and it rarely delivers punchlines worth remembering. This more accessible imprint is balanced with an incredible work done by the visual artists who went completely over the top. Yes, the most solid pillar of Psychonauts 2 is the art style. Since the story is set in the absurd minds of unique gothic characters, physics and logic aren't applied in the traditional way. Gravity can switch. An opening can connect the dimensions in a beautiful, seamless way. A spiral path can change for a long time before you realize that it is impossible. You can end up going through a platform level inside of a book. Raz uses his psycho portal to enter each mind, and every passion, hobby, or nightmare suddenly turns into a theme park based on that particular emotion. Going to the dentist, having fun at a crazy casino, jumping from one delicious plate to the other, and so many more, which, of course, I don't want to spoil because of how stunning they are. All of this is supported by graphics. The jump between the first game and Psychonauts 2 is huge. True reflections, gorgeous lighting and colors, fast loading on next generation consoles, detailed character models, and so much more. I honestly can't stop looking at some of the footage I took while writing this review because it's just stunning and so different from anything else released this year. At the same time though, it manages to be faithful and loyal to its 16 years old legacy. It's pretty obvious at this point that I would recommend Psychonauts 2 to everyone honestly, because it truly offers something for everyone. There's comedy, a unique graphic style, platforming, puzzles, cinematic storytelling, collectibles, smooth writing. Raz is a perfect protagonist as he manages to both stand out and take a back seat according to who the focus is on. While we only get to play as him, every time we enter a mind, the attention shifts to a different character and personality, making every moment worth remembering. This is the first day one title on Game Pass that truly delivered a satisfying amount of content and quality. That's how I played it, but considering the proportions of this ambitious sequel, I wouldn't mind buying it at full price. That being said, Psychonauts 2 also suffers from being slow with a lot of forced exposition, but that mostly happens with optional dialogues, so someone might argue that this can't be considered a negative aspect. In my opinion, it is, as there are games that have incredible writing both in mandatory and optional dialogues. So do yourself a favor and check out Psychonauts 2, especially because you don't need to pay anything if you're already subscribed to Game Pass and you have a PC or Xbox. Let me know what you think about the game. 2D here, thank you for listening and see you next time.